There are a handful of teams that start off the season on such a sour note that it's clear as day that their year is going nowhere fast.
All of these teams have just a 2.4% of reaching the postseason.
Let's take a look around the league at some of the going-ons and call out 10 NFL teams whose 2025 seasons are over already. New Orleans Saints. Well, I think this is the most obvious place to start. The Saints lost Derek Carr before the season even kicked off. He retired in May after discovering a degenerative shoulder issue, leaving them with the likes of Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck. And with that turn of events, multiple years of roster building efforts designed around a veteran QB went right out the window, leaving them with the journeyman in the making in Rattler and an uninspiring 25-year-old rookie to back him up. Rattler is the starter for now, by virtue of being the most experienced, but man, he looks every bit like a Band-Aid thrust into a situation requiring surgery. The Saints season isn't just off track, it is completely off the rails. And quite honestly, it'd be surprising to see things get any better without getting worse first. Atlanta Falcons. Nobody in football is blitzing more than the Falcons. Unfortunately, it does not seem to be paying off for them. At least, not against more seasoned competition. They were successful against a first-year starter in J.J. McCarthy in Week 2, but Atlanta has not looked great beyond that, especially with that humiliating 30-0 loss within the division to the Carolina Panthers in Week 3. Ugh. It isn't like the Panthers were playing particularly good football coming in either. While the defense was a mess, continually getting burned on its over-aggressive plays, the real story through 3 weeks has been the cause for concern around Michael Penix Jr., the team's young quarterback who looks to be regressing quite a bit. And with a serious test looming in the form of games against the Washington Commanders and Buffalo Bills, the Falcons could be in bigger trouble than one embarrassing loss would signal. Even in an uninspiring NFC South, that looks like it could be all she wrote for the Falcons in 2025. Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are making a habit out of getting buried early. Through 3 weeks, they're 8th worst in the league in first half points allowed at 15.7 per game, and 3rd worst in total yards surrendered at 214. That's not bend but don't break. That is bend, snap, and head to the locker room at halftime with the game hanging in the balance already. Sunday against Washington was downright ugly. The Commanders hung 20 points and rolled up 259 yards in the first 2 quarters alone, 174 of those on the ground. By the time the second half rolled around, the damage was already done. And this isn't just a one-off. This is a trend that is defining the start of Pete Carroll's first full year in charge. And that's with the superstar in Max Crosby basically playing every single snap. Carroll was hired to bring structure, swagger, and a backbone to a franchise that has been drifting for years. But it's looking like the same old Raiders. It just looks like the Silver and Black are still searching for an identity in Sin City beyond Crosby's relentless motor. New York Jets. Hey, stop me if you've heard this one before. The New York Jets season is over before it really even got a chance to get started. Well, hopefully Jets fans can be patient with first-year head coach Aaron Glenn, who walked into a very cursed franchise with a porous roster. But man, it has been a tough start to the year. As if it weren't bad enough to come into the season with Justin Fields as the answer at quarterback, well, then you lose him and you have to start trekking down the depth chart just 2 weeks into the year. Fortunately, they had a proven journeyman in Tyrod Taylor to turn to. But man, he is not exactly the kind of guy that's going to renew hope in a fan base that is desperate for a playoff appearance. New York has also endured 2 gut-wrenching losses to go with the thorough beating that it took from Buffalo in Week 2. They started off the year losing a nail-biter to the Steelers 34-32. Then, following the aforementioned beatdown from Buffalo, they lost one of the most painful games in recent memory. The Jets forged a massive comeback against Baker Mayfield and the Bucs, marching back from 23-6 to take the lead in the final minutes of the game on a blocked field goal returned for a touchdown, only to have Mayfield lead a game-winning drive in the final minute of regulation in order to push the Jets down to 0-3, effectively killing their season in cold blood. Tennessee Titans. The Titans were always going to be walking a fine line in 2025. A relatively inexperienced head coach in Brian Callahan, and a nepo baby at that, a rookie quarterback in Cam Ward, and an offensive line that has been, well, a bit of a sore spot for years now. 3 weeks in, it looks like the straw has landed on the camel's back, and it has officially broken. The one silver lining for Titans fans so far is that Ward has shown some flashes when he's gotten enough time to actually look downfield. But those moments interceptions have been few and far between because, that line has been real bad. He's completing under 55% of his passes through 3 weeks as a result, and the Titans' offense has not been able to sustain drives with any consistency, leaving their offense in the bottom 5 in most categories across the league. The defense isn't much better in its own right. Through 3 weeks, they ranked 31st in points allowed and 27th in yards. Fans are really starting to get impatient with Callahan, as they really should, honestly. I mean, this feels like more of the same. The system lacks creativity, and the team isn't even disciplined. They've already committed 31 penalties this year. That is 17 more than their opposition. It's tough to win games that way. I think it's safe to say that the 2025 season's focus should shift to keeping Ward healthy and fostering his development. Any hope of competing in his rookie year are long gone. Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals came into 2025 with very high expectations, but that all came crashing down when the news broke that Joe Burrow needed grade 3 turf toe surgery and is expected to miss roughly 3 months, IR stint and all. As per usual, no Burrow, no fun in Cincy. He's the kind of quarterback that changes everything for a team, and they looked lost without him in week 3, taking a humiliating 48-10 faceplant at home against a Carson Wentz-led Minnesota Vikings team. Yes, no Burrow is an obvious factor, but this was easily one of the worst losses in Bengals history, and a clear indicator of which direction their season is going. They're still 2-1, which is not nothing, but based off of how they looked with Jake Browning under center and a couple of tough matchups approaching, heading to Denver, hosting the Lions, and then shipping out to Green Bay, well, this one could start to get away from Cincy very, very fast. New York Giants. Another year, another brutal start to a season for Brian Daboll and the New York Giants. Daboll is now on, his 15th quarterback? And the so-called QB whisperer hasn't had a lick of luck. Even more concerning, though, is their defense, which many expected to be a strong suit thanks to that beastly front seven. But they have just not been up to par. The Giants are stuck at 0-3 and looked lifeless in the Week 3 loss to the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that this one is a wrap. Miami Dolphins. I think it's tough to have a worse vibe than the Dolphins do down in South Beach through 3 weeks of the 2025 season. So far, they rank dead last in the league in turnover differential, with their D not having forced a single one, and Tua Tagovailoa up to his usual antics, failing to take care of the ball properly. Now, to their credit, they look surprisingly competent against the Buffalo Bills in Week 3, despite most people thinking that they were going to get mollywopped coming into the contest. Though, if we're being honest, that felt more like their last gasp more than anything else. Like that was their final punch, and now the Finns will be resigned to taking their lumps for the remainder of the season. So yeah, don't be surprised if this one turns belly up in a big way very soon. Mike McDaniels seems to have lost the locker room, and there's a high probability that he gets the axe. And of course, that front office is going to start turning its attention to the future and start to sell off its assets very soon. Looking at you, Tyreek Hill. Houston Texans. And a coaching cliche that isn't a cliche right now, it's not about being close. D'Amico Ryan said it, and he's right. The Texans have now taken 3 one-score losses, which, for those keeping score at home, add up to 0-3. And their season is on life support. The mistakes keep playing on repeat. The late-game execution and lack of urgency in the red zone. This team just doesn't look like a serious playoff contender. Even with the defense playing well, the offense can't seem to do its part. What makes it all the more concerning for Houston is that their franchise quarterback, C.J. Stroud, doesn't seem to be rebounding from his sophomore slump. He completed just 25 of 38 pass attempts for 204 yards and 1 touchdown to 2 interceptions in the 17-10 letdown loss in Jacksonville during Week 3. Again, the defense played well enough, but that offense couldn't finish. And it has been the same story each and every week, as they've only allowed 41 total points thus far, which makes the brutal start all the more frustrating for both fans and players alike. Dallas Cowboys. No Micah, no problem. That's what Jerry Jones is preaching going into the 2025 NFL season, and wow, he could not have been more wrong. Through 3 weeks, the Cowboys sit at 1-2 and barely snuck out their lone win in a back-and-forth sloppy slugfest against their lowly rival, the New York Giants. The defense has been a huge problem too. They've allowed so many big plays. 13 pass plays of 25 yards or more, including 5 touchdowns. Now, some of that falls on the secondary, sure, but don't you think that could have been mitigated if they had an all-world pass rusher getting after the opposing QB? Smart money says duh. Dallas got completely humiliated in Week 3 by an 0-2 Chicago team, and it's starting to look like another lost year in Big D. But hey, which NFL team do you think's 2025 season is over already? Who do you think we're right on here? Who do you think we're wrong about? Is there anything notable that we may have missed? Let us know in the comment section below. If you liked this video and learned a thing or two, then hey, clicking the like button helps us out a ton. And you know, we really appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, then subscribing is a great idea, because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.